I was adjusting my sister's veil when her future mother-in-law grabbed my wrist and whispered 8 words that shattered my entire life. "We finally found you? You're our stolen daughter!" My name is Harper Morrison, and until that moment at my sister Willow's wedding, I thought I knew exactly who I was. 28 years old, event coordinator, protective big sister, daughter of Frank and Diane Morrison. But sometimes the truth waits decades to destroy you. Choosing the perfect moment when happiness makes you vulnerable. That Saturday in June started like any fairy tale wedding should. Willow looked radiant in her ivory dress. Mason waited at the altar with tears in his eyes, and our parents beamed with pride from the front row. I should have been focused on my maid of honor duties, but Victoria Caldwell, the groom's mother, had been staring at me all morning with an intensity that made my skin crawl. When she grabbed me during those final moments before the ceremony, her perfectly manicured nails dug into my skin. Her voice trembled as she spoke those impossible words. The wedding music had already started, guests were taking their seats, and there I stood holding my sister's bouquet while a stranger claimed I was her missing daughter. "You have the birthmark," Victoria said, her eyes wild with a desperate hope I'd never seen before. "The crescent moon on your collarbone. Emma had the same mark, my Emma." The bouquet slipped from my hands, white roses scattering across the marble floor. In the mirror behind Victoria, I caught sight of my reflection. The small birthmark I'd always thought made me unique, now feeling like evidence of a crime I didn't know had been committed. This is the story of how I discovered that the parents who raised me were not my parents. The sister I would die for was not my sister, and the life I'd lived for 28 years was built on a lie that started with a kidnapping in a Milwaukee grocery store. The morning of Willow's wedding arrived with perfect June weather, the kind that makes you believe in fresh starts and happy endings. I pulled into the circular driveway of Rosewood Manor at exactly 7 a.m., my car packed with emergency supplies that would make a doomsday prepper proud. Extra pantyhose, safety pins, stain remover, tissues, granola bars, and a sewing kit that had saved 3 weddings already. Being an event coordinator meant I knew everything that could go wrong at a wedding, and being Willow's sister meant I'd prepared for disasters that existed only in my anxious imagination. "Harper, thank God you're here." Willow flung open the bridal suite door before I could knock, her hair in rollers, wearing the silk robe I'd given her that said "Bride" in gold letters. "Mom's crying already. The makeup artist is stuck in traffic, and I think I'm going to throw up." "Deep breaths," I said, setting down my supplies and taking her hands. "Remember when you performed at the senior talent show? You said you were going to throw up then, too, but you sang like an angel. That was different. I wasn't promising to love someone forever in front of 200 people." I guided her to the velvet settee by the window. "You've loved Mason since sophomore year of college. The promise is just paperwork at this point." She laughed, the tension easing from her shoulders. This was our dynamic since childhood. Willow would spiral, I would steady her. She was the artist who saw the world in watercolors and possibilities. I was the planner who kept her grounded. Our parents used to joke that we were 2 halves of one perfectly functional person. The door burst open and our mother appeared, already dressed in her lavender mother of the bride dress, clutching a velvet jewelry box. Diane Morrison at 55 was still beautiful, with silver streaking through her brown hair and laugh lines that proved she'd lived a joyful life. But this morning, something seemed off. Her smile was too bright, her movements too quick. "My beautiful girls," she said, her voice catching. "Willow, honey, I have Grandma Eleanor's pearls. She wore them at her wedding in 1952, and I wore them at mine." As Mom fastened the pearls around Willow's neck, I noticed her hands trembling. "You okay, Mom?" "Just emotional," she said quickly. "My baby's getting married. Where did the time go? It seems like yesterday you were both in pigtails, Harper bossing Willow around on the playground." "I didn't boss her around, I protected her from bullies." "You punched Timothy Crawford in the face," Willow reminded me. "He called you weird for painting butterflies on your sneakers. He had it coming." We all laughed, and for a moment Mom's tension dissolved. This was who we were, the Morrison girls, united against the world. Dad liked to say he was outnumbered, but never outgunned. The makeup artist arrived in a flurry of apologies and immediately set to work on Willow. I helped Mom organize the bridesmaids' bouquets, sneaking glances at her when she wasn't looking. She kept checking her phone, frowning at the screen. "Dad on his way?" I asked. "He's here already, talking to the photographer about locations for family pictures." She paused, then added quietly, "Harper, you know we love you, right? Both of you, more than anything in this world." Random declaration of love before noon? Are you dying? She pulled me into a fierce hug. Can't a mother tell her daughters she loves them? Sure, but you're squeezing me like I'm about to disappear. She released me, laughing shakily. Sorry, weddings make me sentimental. Later, as I helped Willow into her dress, she caught my eye in the mirror. Is it just me, or are Mom and Dad acting strange? They've been weird all week. They're probably just emotional about their baby growing up, I said, though I'd noticed it too. The whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. The way Dad kept looking at me during last night's rehearsal dinner like he was memorizing my face. We'll always be their babies, Willow said. Even when we're old and gray, they'll still see us as those little girls who built blanket forts in the living room. I zipped up her dress, smoothing the delicate lace. Some things never change. If only I had known how wrong I was. The ceremony was supposed to start at 3 o'clock, but by 2:30, Victoria Caldwell had already approached me 4 times. The first encounter happened while I was arranging place cards in the reception hall. She appeared at my elbow, studying my face with an intensity that made me step back. "I'm sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "You just look incredibly familiar. Have we met before?" "I don't think so, Mrs. Caldwell. I'm Harper, Willow's sister. We met briefly at the engagement party." No, before that. Something about your features." She tilted her head, examining me like I was a painting in a museum. "Your eyes, especially. Such an unusual shade of green." I forced a polite smile and excused myself, but 20 minutes later, she found me adjusting the altar flowers. "Harper," she said my name slowly, tasting each syllable. "Is that a family name?" "Actually, my mom just liked how it sounded." I tried to keep my voice light, but her behavior was starting to unnerve me. I should check on Willow. The third time, she cornered me near the kitchen. "Where did you grow up?" "Chicago, born and raised." "What hospital?" The question was so unexpected, so oddly specific that I laughed. "I have no idea. Why?" She didn't answer, just stared at my collarbone where my dress had shifted, revealing the crescent-shaped birthmark I'd had my entire life. Her face went pale, and she stumbled backward, knocking into a server carrying champagne glasses. "Mrs. Caldwell, are you feeling all right? Should I get Mason?" "No!" She grabbed my arm. "Don't tell Mason anything, not yet." She hurried away, leaving me confused and increasingly uncomfortable. I found our cousin Brady, who was serving as an usher, and pulled him aside. "Keep an eye on the groom's mother. I think she might be drunk or having some kind of breakdown." "She seems sober to me," Brady said. "Just asked me a bunch of weird questions about your family. Wanted to know how long I'd known you, if I remembered when you were born." A chill ran down my spine. What did you tell her? The truth. That we didn't meet until you guys moved from Milwaukee when you were 2. Why? What's going on? Milwaukee. I'd heard the story 100 times. Dad got a better job offer in Chicago, so they packed up their life and moved. Nothing suspicious about it. Families relocated all the time. The fourth encounter happened minutes before the ceremony. I was doing a final check on Willow, making sure her veil was secure, when Victoria appeared in the doorway of the bridal suite. Her face was blotchy, her expensive makeup ruined by tears. "I need to speak with Harper. Alone." Willow frowned. "Mrs. Caldwell, we're about to walk down the aisle. Please, it's urgent." Something in her voice made me nod. "Give us 2 minutes," I told Willow. "I'll be right back." Victoria pulled me into an empty room down the hall, fumbling with her purse. Her hands shook as she extracted a worn photograph, the edges soft from years of handling. "This is my daughter, Emma," she whispered, pressing the photo into my hands. She was 14 months old when someone took her from my shopping cart at a grocery store in Milwaukee. 28 years ago. I stared at the baby in the picture. Chubby cheeks, wispy brown hair, bright green eyes. And there, on her tiny collarbone, a crescent-shaped birthmark identical to mine. "This is impossible," I said, but my voice sounded strange, distant. "I'm Harper Morrison. I've always been Harper Morrison." "Your blood type," Victoria said urgently. "Do you know it?" O negative. I donate blood regularly. Her legs gave out and she sank onto a chair. My husband and I are both AB positive. It's genetically impossible for us to have an AB positive child. But Emma would be O negative. The birthmark, the blood type, your age, those green eyes that skip a generation in my family? You're wrong. The photo trembled in my hand. My parents are Frank and Diane Morrison. I have a birth certificate, a social security number, a whole life. What hospital? She asked again. What doctor delivered you? Have you ever seen your birth certificate? The questions hit like physical blows because I didn't have answers. I never needed to see my birth certificate. My parents had always handled official documents. The baby photos in our family albums started when I was 2, but lots of families were bad at taking pictures, right? Harper, I think you're my Emma. I think you're my stolen daughter. The walls of the small room seemed to close in as I stared at the photograph. My mind raced through memories, searching for proof that Victoria was wrong. First day of kindergarten, Mom braiding my hair, Dad teaching me to ride a bike in Lincoln Park, Willow and I making snow angels in the backyard. These were real memories with real parents. They had to be. I need to go, I said, shoving the photo back at Victoria. My sister is getting married. Please, just let me explain what I know. After Emma disappeared, we hired private investigators, worked with police, appeared on every news program that would have us. The case went cold after 5 years, but I never stopped looking. When Mason told me his fiance's family was originally from Milwaukee, something stirred in me. Then I saw you today. My phone buzzed. A text from Willow. Where are you? The music is starting. I have to go, I repeated, but my legs felt unsteady. Harper, I've waited 28 years. I can wait a few more hours. But please, after the ceremony, we need to talk more. We need to do a DNA test. I left her there and walked back to the bridal suite in a daze. Willow grabbed my hands the moment I entered. There you are. Is everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Everything's fine, I lied, forcing my face into a smile. Just pre-wedding jitters. Not even my wedding, and I'm nervous. The ceremony itself passed in a blur. I stood at the altar holding Willow's bouquet, mechanically performing my duties while my mind churned. Every time I looked at my parents in the front row, I searched their faces for signs of deception. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Dad held her hand, his expression proud but strained. Were they crying because their daughter was getting married, or because they knew their secret was about to explode? During the vows, when Mason promised to love Willow through all of life's challenges, I caught Victoria staring at me from across the aisle. Her husband, a distinguished man with silver hair, whispered something to her, probably telling her to focus on their son's wedding instead of terrorizing the maid of honor. As the newlyweds kissed and the crowd erupted in applause, I made a decision. I couldn't get through the reception, the toasts, the dancing, without knowing the truth. During the cocktail hour, while guests mingled and the wedding party took photos, I slipped away to find Brady. He was chatting with other cousins near the bar when I pulled him aside. I need a favor, a big one, and I need you to not ask questions until later. Brady's expression shifted from casual to concerned. Harper, what's wrong? Can you run a missing persons check? The name is Emma Caldwell, Milwaukee, 1997, kidnapped at 14 months. Why would you need that? Please, Brady. I'll explain everything later. Just see what you can find. He studied my face, then nodded. Give me 20 minutes. I'll make some calls. While Brady worked his police connections, I found my parents in the garden, posing for photos with distant relatives. I waited until the photographer moved on to another group before approaching them. Mom, Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. Dad's smile faltered. Harper, sweetheart, what's wrong? I pulled out my phone and showed them the photo Victoria had given me, which I'd quickly snapped before returning it. Mason's mother thinks I'm her kidnapped daughter. She says this baby is me. The color drained from Dad's face so quickly, I thought he might faint. Mom's hand flew to her throat, clutching the pearls she'd worn to match Willow's. That's ridiculous, Mom said, but her voice cracked on the last syllable. Then tell me what hospital I was born in. Show me my birth certificate. Give me the name of one person who knew me before I was 2. They stood frozen, neither speaking. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Say something. My voice rose and a few guests glanced our way. Dad reached for me, but I stepped back. His hand dropped to his side. When he finally spoke, his words were barely a whisper. "We loved you the moment we saw you." The ground beneath my feet seemed to tilt. Those weren't the words of innocent parents falsely accused. Those were the words of people about to confess. "We need to go somewhere private," Dad said, his voice hollow. "Not here, not at Willow's wedding." "No." I planted my feet, rage building in my chest. "You've had 28 years of privacy. Start talking." Mom's tears came in earnest now, mascara creating dark rivers down her cheeks. "Harper, please, let us explain." "Explain what? That you kidnapped me? That my entire life is a lie? We didn't kidnap you." Mom's voice broke. "We saved you." The word saved hit me like a slap. Around us, wedding guests continued to laugh and chat, oblivious to the bomb detonating in the garden. I saw Brady approaching from across the lawn, his face grim, phone in hand. "Frank, Diane," he said quietly, "we need to talk." I found the case file. Emma Caldwell, taken from Brennan's grocery store, October 15th, 1997. The details match. Dad sank onto a stone bench like his bones had turned to water. "We never meant for it to go this far. Start from the beginning," I demanded. "Every detail." Mom sat beside Dad, taking his hand. "We've been trying for a baby for 7 years, 4 miscarriages. The doctors said it would never happen. I was working at my sister's women's shelter in Milwaukee, volunteering really, trying to fill the void. One night, a woman came in during a storm. Young, maybe early 20s, clearly high on something. She had a toddler with her, about 14 months old. Beautiful little girl with bright green eyes and a crescent birthmark. My hand went involuntarily to my collarbone. She left the baby in the playroom and disappeared. We waited 3 days. No one came back for her. No missing child reports matched her description. I convinced myself she'd been abandoned. "So you just took me?" My voice was ice. "We were going to go through proper channels," Dad interjected. "File with child services, become foster parents, adopt legally." But then Diane saw the news report about the Caldwell baby. Same age, same birthmark. "I panicked," Mom admitted. "I knew if we turned you in, we'd lose you. And you'd already been through so much trauma. You'd started calling me Mama. You were happy with us. So you became kidnappers." The word tasted bitter. "We became your parents," Dad said firmly. "We moved to Chicago within the week. My company had an opening there. I had a friend who could create documents. We gave you a new name, a new life, a family who loved you." Brady's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, but I could see his expression growing more troubled. "You watched those parents on TV begging for their baby back, and you kept me anyway." "By then you were ours," Mom whispered. "You had night terrors those first months. You'd wake up screaming. Whatever happened before you came to us, it wasn't good. We told ourselves we were protecting you." "From my real parents? From Victoria, who's been searching for me for almost 3 decades?" Brady returned, his face pale. "Harper, there's more." The woman who took Emma Caldwell was caught on security footage. She was identified as Melissa Vaughn, a drug addict with a history of mental illness. She was found dead of an overdose 2 weeks after the kidnapping. The baby was never found. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. The unstable woman at the shelter, the abandoned toddler, my parents' desperate desire for a child, a perfect storm of circumstances that had shattered 2 families. "Victoria needs to know," I said. "She's spent 28 years believing her daughter might be dead." "Harper, no." Mom reached for me. "We're your parents. We raised you. We love you." "You stole me." The words ripped from my throat. "And Willow, God, does she know?" "No," Dad said quickly. "We found out Diane was pregnant with her just 2 months after we brought you home. A miracle, the doctors said. Stress of trying for so long had finally lifted." I laughed, but it sounded hysterical. "Because you'd already stolen your first child. Why bother with fertility treatments when kidnapping was so much easier?" Across the garden, I saw Victoria approaching with her husband. She must have seen Brady, sensed the gathering storm. Willow appeared too, her wedding dress gleaming in the sunset, Mason at her side. "What's going on?" Willow asked. looking between our parents' tear-stained faces and my shaking hands. Harper, why does Mom look like someone died? I met my sister's eyes, the sister who wasn't really my sister, and felt my heart shatter. Because 28 years ago, they stole a baby, and that baby was me. The next 6 months passed in a blur of DNA tests, legal consultations, and therapy sessions. The results came back exactly as expected. I was Emma Caldwell, stolen from a grocery store cart when I was 14 months old, raised by the people who were supposed to return me. Frank and Diane Morrison faced criminal charges for kidnapping and fraud. The judge, considering the circumstances and the decades that had passed, sentenced them to 5 years of probation and 2,000 hours of community service. They stood in the courtroom looking smaller than I'd ever seen them as the verdict was read. I couldn't bring myself to look at them. Victoria Caldwell became a constant presence in my life, trying to compress 28 years of lost motherhood into daily texts and weekly lunches. She'd share stories about my biological father, Thomas, who died of a heart attack 5 years earlier, never knowing his daughter might still be alive. She showed me photos of grandparents I'd never meet, cousins I'd never known existed, and the bedroom they'd kept exactly as it was, waiting for a baby who never came home. "We celebrated your birthday every year," Victoria told me one afternoon over coffee. "October 3rd, we'd buy a cake, sing happy birthday, and blow out the candles for you." My birthday with the Morrisons had always been June 15th. Even that was a lie. The hardest part was navigating my relationship with Willow. She'd postponed her honeymoon, refusing to leave while our family imploded. For weeks, she called and texted constantly, but I couldn't respond. How could I explain that looking at her felt like grief, that every shared memory now felt tainted? Finally, 3 months after the wedding, I agreed to meet her. She showed up at my apartment with Chinese takeout and red eyes. "I know you're not ready to forgive them," she said, setting out containers on my coffee table, "but I need you to know something. You're my sister. You've been my sister since I was born. Biology doesn't change that. Willow, your parents stole me. They stole Emma Caldwell, but they raised Harper Morrison, and Harper Morrison is the one who taught me to tie my shoes, who scared away my nightmares, who punched Timothy Crawford for making fun of my painted sneakers." She grabbed my hands. "You're the one who held my hair when I got food poisoning at summer camp. You're the one who helped me through my first heartbreak. That's not fake. That's not stolen. That's ours." I broke down crying then, months of suppressed emotion flooding out. Willow held me while I sobbed, whispering that she loved me, that she'd always love me, that sisters were forever. Slowly, painfully, I began building a new life as Harper, Emma Morrison Caldwell. I kept both names because I couldn't erase 28 years of being Harper Morrison any more than I could ignore my origin as Emma Caldwell. I started attending family dinners with the Caldwells, learning about relatives and traditions that should have been mine. But I also showed up for Willow's first anniversary dinner because she was right. Some bonds transcend blood. Frank and Diane sent letters I didn't open for months. When I finally read them, they were full of apologies and explanations that changed nothing, but somehow changed everything. They'd been wrong, criminally wrong, but they'd also been the parents who stayed up all night when I had the flu, who cheered at every school play, who taught me to be strong and kind and brave. At therapy, doctor. Martinez asked me what I'd learned from all of this. I thought for a long time before answering. That truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury it, that love can be both selfish and selfless at the same time. That family is complicated and messy, and sometimes built on lies, but it's also about who shows up when your world falls apart. She asked if I'd forgiven them. "I'm working on it," I said, "all of them. The Morrisons for taking me, the Caldwells for being strangers, myself for feeling torn between two families when some people don't even have one. Today, I have two families. It's complicated and awkward and sometimes painful, but it's mine. Willow remains my anchor, the sister of my heart if not my blood. Victoria sends too many texts, but I'm learning to appreciate her desperate love. And sometimes, late at night, I find myself missing Frank and Diane Morrison, the people who stole me and loved me and made me who I am. Some people search their whole lives for their identity. I found mine at my sister's wedding, in the space between who I was born to be and who I was raised to become. The truth didn't set me free. Instead, it taught me that sometimes love is complicated, that sometimes good people do terrible things, and that sometimes the life built on a lie can still contain profound truths. Family isn't just about blood or birth certificates or DNA tests. It's about who shapes you, who stands by you, who refuses to let go even when the truth threatens to tear everything apart. I have 2 mothers now, one who lost me and one who found me, both who love me in their own broken ways. And I have Willow, my sister in every way that matters, who reminded me that some bonds can't be stolen, only given. That's my story. It's messy and painful and strange, but it's also about love in all its imperfect forms. And maybe that's the most human story of all. If this story touched you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your comments mean everything, so let me know your thoughts below. And if you want to hear more true stories about family, identity, and the complicated ways we find our way home, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Thank you for listening to my journey.